following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everyone. This is Rob Deininger with Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I'm here with Jack Degraw, and we're talking Yankees baseball. How you doing, Jack?
Good. How are you tonight, Robert?
I'm doing pretty good. Yankees got off to a rough start last night, losing their first game of the 9-game road trip.
Yeah, Herman got hit around a little bit. You know, he to my surprise, he pitched in the 6th inning, and he gave up like 6 runs. And a good thing is we've finally seen Aaron Judge hit a home run to left field. You know, the Yankees got such a big lead. I think at some point they should, rest Herman for a start or so.
Yeah, he's talking off the air. I mentioned he's given up 14 home runs in the second half of the season, which is the most among the Yankee starters, or any pitcher for that matter in the team.
Yeah, he's been struggling a little bit, and like we were saying, how many innings did he throw in, Robert? I don't have the stat in front of me.
He's up to, let's see. He's up to 121 innings, 121 in the third.
Yeah, and the most he ever threw in the minor leagues was like 121. So, he's right at his his limit. I think he only threw 90 innings last year, and that's including the minor leagues.
Yeah, and any updates on Severino, when we should expect him back?
Well, he threw a bullpen yesterday. And he's down in Tampa now. And tomorrow, on Thursday, he's going to throw to some live batters.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, go on.
He's going to have some live BP. He's going to throw to some hitters. And maybe sometime next week they might, send him up to Trenton or down here in Tampa. But he's on the way. And Betances threw he threw something today. He threw 10 or 12 pitches, sat down for 5 minutes, then he threw another 10 or 12 pitches. So, he's coming along good too.
That's good news, because it seems the one thing that's on the mind of Yankee fans. I've been listening to sports radio, and they're all extremely worried about their starting pitching going into the postseason. Who's gonna start? Tanaka will start game 1, but if you go with Herman game 2, who are you comfortable going with for game 3? If Severino's not healthy?
Well, that's a question right now, because Paxton and Happ and CC, you really don't know what you're going to get out of them at this point. I mean, you might just see him throw 3 innings and then, go to the bullpen and stuff. If they get Betances back with all the guys they got in the bullpen, these guys might, only have to throw a couple innings.
Yeah, I read one article that suggested that maybe they should start Chad Green and then bring in James Paxton, considering how bad he's been in the first inning.
Yeah, I know Happ has had some first inning problems too.
Yeah, I mean it's brutal to watch sometimes. I mean, you just know they're going to give up a couple of runs, and as many runs as the Yankees have scored, they've given up the most runs too of any playoff team right now that's going to be in the playoffs. Yeah,
fortunately, the Yankees have been playing some of the weaker teams, but when they get against the better teams, you see how, the pitching is really hurting. So, these guys got to step up, or it could be a short postseason.
Yeah, and I'm interested to seeing this weekend series with the Dodgers, because we're going to have Paxton starting game 1, Sabathia will pitch game 2, and Herman will pitch Sunday to finish off the series with LA. So it should be a little preview of what could be.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees they're still in great shape. They got the 10-game lead, but if they go in a 4 or 5 game losing streak, the Rays get hot again. They're right back in the race. So
yeah,
these next 5 games is a big series for them, and then they come back again, the Yankees, and they play Oakland at home. So the next 2 weeks, could decide if they're going to coast in September, or they're going to have to, struggle right to the end.
Yeah, because right now you got Cleveland has the top spot for the first wild card, and Tampa and Oakland are battling out for number 2 right now.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland's really turned it on. I seen last night they got like 4 guys with 20 or more home runs, and they're a team like the Rays. They just seem to come up with these guys, and they're a tough team to play.
Yeah, Billy Beane always seems to. He's still a GM, right? Billy Beane.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I mean his teams always come, have that second half surge.
Yeah, he always seems to build a good team down, out there in Oakland. It's just like the Rays down here. They don't have the resources, or they don't use the resources, but they always seem to, come up with players that, gets them into the playoffs or close to it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who are upset because right now Mike Trout is the clear runaway favorite for MVP, but a lot of Yankee fans feel DJ LeMahieu should be in that conversation. But Urshela is batting .338, but I don't think he has enough at bats to qualify for the batting title, does he? I think he only has 352 at bats. Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't pay too much close attention to that, but Trout's a great player, and LeMahieu has done fantastic this year. But we'll see how it plays out the last month. But Trout he's something special. I'd love to see him with the Yankees.
Yeah, because it brings up when Luke Voit comes back in the postseason, who are you playing in the infield? Because if Voigt's healthy, you want to play him at first, and you need to keep LeMahieu in the lineup, which means you might have to put Urshela on the bench. Yeah,
I mean it's a tough call, and the update on Voit, he's taking batting practice now with the Scranton Rail Riders, and he's going to start playing Friday, and he should get some at bats, and he'll be back when the Yankees get back against the A's. But there's a lot of decisions to be made the last month. I mean, they got a lot of injured players coming back.
Yeah, what about everyone's talking about Stanton coming back too, but I haven't really heard any updates on his status.
The only thing I heard, he's out in Oakland with the Yankees, and he's running on the field, and he's doing some like defensive drills, but he hasn't hit outside at all. So the way it looks now, I mean, it's going to be at least another 2 weeks before he could possibly even be getting in the games. And the minor league season ends the first week in September, so that's right up. It's up in the air right now.
Yeah, because I mean, if he does somehow make it back and he's healthy, I mean, you assume he'd be on the playoff roster, which means someone would be out.
Yeah, they get all these guys back. You get Hicks coming back and Stanton, and if they're on the playoff roster and they haven't gotten many at bats going into the postseason, who are you going to play? I mean, you could get in the playoffs and everybody be healthy, but they're not. They only got 40, 50 at bats, and then the great ball the Yankees been playing all year, like they hit with runners on base and they do all the little things. Then you're going to have the strikeouts or home run guys back. So
yeah.
You don't know what you're going to run into with that.
And I mean, right now the Yankees have, I think, the best record in baseball, if I'm not mistaken. And home field advantage would be huge, in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, you can. I think in baseball it's the least important of most of the other sports, but you do want to get if you play Houston, you do want to get the final game at home because. Yeah. The Yankees just seem to play better at, with the crazies in the Bronx. Yeah. And Sanchez also hit a home run last night too. Is that right?
Yeah, he had a home run in the first. I think I was reading he's had some problems throwing. He's got like 14 errors this year.
Wow.
I know he has some trouble. He hasn't had much trouble with the pass balls or the wild pitches, but he's had a little trouble throwing. But out of all the catchers in baseball, I'd still rather have him because the bat is something special.
He seems to wear down over the course of the season. It seems. I know the second half. His batting average is taking a dive.
Yeah, he does seem to tire out. It's lucky the Yankees got Romine and stuff. It'd be great if you could have Sanchez like DH for a while, but the Yankees have so many candidates to DH.
Yeah.
It's like you got three guys for virtually one position, and there's so many decisions to be made, and you don't know if you're making the right one. Well, the analytics people figure that out.
Yeah. He's batting 191 since the All-Star break.
Yeah, I know he's had a rough patch.
But with Judge, it'd be nice to see Judge getting his back going and seeing him pull some pitches more to left field. That's a nice sign.
Yeah, that home run to see last night was I believe it's the first home to left field this season.
Yeah, and speaking of the Yankees pitching, do you think they'll bring up Deivi Garcia in September, or do you think they'll just shut him down?
I think, Robert, the safe thing to do would be to shut him down because they have so many candidates coming back. I mean, if Betances comes back and Sevy comes back, and the Yankees signed a pitcher, they got that didn't they sign somebody the other day, Robert? We were talking about.
Yeah, Rosenthal. He pitched with the Nationals and Tigers this year, I think. Yeah,
I mean, he was a big time reliever a few years ago. So there's another arm you got in the bullpen. I wouldn't risk Garcia. He's too young, and they really don't need him at this point. I would just shut him down and wait till the spring.
Yeah, and another promising pitcher, Clark Schmidt, since he got promoted to Trenton, in 2 games he's looked really good. In 12 innings, he's got 14 strikeouts. He's 1-0. And he's a pitcher on the rise, I think.
Yeah, well, he played, I believe he played at South Carolina, and, you play in that conference, I believe it's the ACC, they got a lot of, guys in pro ball, so when these guys are pitching in a conference like that, it gets them a lot of experience, so he could come into play maybe as soon as next season.
Yeah. And there's Ryan McBroom, that guy that they got from Toronto in that trade. He's actually having a really good season down in the minors. He's batting .323 on the year with 21 homers and 56 RBIs. And he is 29 now. Yeah,
I just hope I just hope he gets a chance to go play with a major league team. Will give him a shot because another with the Yankees. You can get buried with all the talent they got now.
And I am hoping that Clint Frazier does get called up in September among some of the call-ups.
Yeah, I think we'll see him because, personally, we've talked about a lot of times. I think we both agree. I'd like to see him, starting in left field next year.
Yeah, and if going into the postseason, right now, you would go Tanaka, Herman. If Severino's healthy, would you like to see him start Game 3, or would you rather see him come out of the bullpen?
Well, at this point, it's hard to say. You don't know how many innings, if and when he comes back. You don't know how stretched out he'll be. Yeah. I mean, if he, he might only get, and this is counting the minor leagues, he might only get 25, 30 innings. So if he's only stretched out to, 50 or 60 pitches, maybe he could start, but he can only throw 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah, because right now, Paxton, he gives up a lot of runs in the first inning. Hap's been the same way, and Sabathia's last start, he seems to get hurt in 1 inning. He seems to have that one bad inning where he gives up 3 or 4 runs. Yeah,
at this point, you really don't know what you're going to get from CC and stuff. I think I'm waiting for Paxton to step up. That's what I'm hoping to see. But we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, like I said, he starts the first game against the Dodgers, which is the one series I'm really looking forward to on this road trip.
Yeah, that should be a fun series. It could be a World Series preview. The Yankees going to have their black uniforms on, and anytime you go to Dodger Stadium is the old rivalry, the Yankees and the Dodgers. That was always a great rivalry.
And I want to be shocked watching the Yankees playing black uniforms. I don't think I've ever seen them wear black uniforms ever.
No, the only time you get the dark-colored uniforms is they got the dark tops in spring training.
That's right. And the Yankees do got to play Seattle, who's been, they're 6-4 in their last 10 games. I know they're not having a great season, but they're a tough team.
Yeah, they beat the Rays the last 3 games they played them, and that's helped the Yankees, and they're playing the Rays again tonight. So hopefully they can knock them off again.
Yeah, the Yankees they're on in the midst of a nine game road stand, and they only come home for 6 games. A series against Oakland, and then against Texas, and then they're right back on the road against Boston, Detroit, and Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, the season slowly but surely, winding down. You only got like 35 games left, and just let me throw this in for forget it. The spring training schedule, if you can believe it, came out today.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Already.
The first game, make your plans early. You only got 6 months to plan.
Yeah.
Is February 22nd against the Blue Jays.
Wow.
So the pitchers and catchers will probably be reporting February 10th. So
earlier and earlier. Jesus.
Yeah, I know it's crazy.
And Boston, they're 6.5 out of the wild card, and they just lost their best pitcher in Chris Sale with an elbow issue.
Is he gone for the season?
I know he went for a second opinion to Dr. Andrews, and they said he's not going to need Tommy John surgery. It's just inflammation of the elbow. But I assume he's pretty much done for the year. Yeah, I mean, boy, the Red Sox, everything went right for them last year, and just everything this year is just went the other way. It'd be nice if the Yankees can have a magical run like the Red Sox did last year.
Well, it could be. I mean, it just seems like every time they need a big hit, they get it. They need a double play, they get it. They need a home run, they get it. And like a lot of ways, it reminds me of the '98 team. Yeah, but they still got a lot of catching up to do before they can compare to that team. And Gleyber Torres is quietly having. It's a great year. He's got 29 home runs. He's batting .280. I mean, he's really been impressive for a young player. Yeah, it's amazing. Like I mentioned before, I seen him down here with Tampa, and he had like 4 or 5 home runs. And the Yankee scouts, the brain trust, was saying, this kid's going to hit 20-plus home runs in the major leagues. And I mean, he's not really that big of a guy, but who knows? He could average 35, 40 home runs for 6 or 8 years. So what a player he's become. And Brett Gardner, he's actually had a nice second half for the season so far. He's batting around .280 since the All-Star game. He's picked up his play a little bit. Yeah, he's really been hitting the ball, and he's made some some excellent plays in the outfield like he's been doing for over 10 seasons. But I know he's injured. He's going to miss tonight's game because of an ingrown toenail. No kidding. With Gardner, do you think he's being targeted a little bit by the umpires? Yeah, I mean, I think he should knock it off a little bit, with hitting the bat in the dugout. But I think in a lot of ways, and this has been going on for years, I think the umpires instigate a lot of these incidences, and they make them worse than they really are. They got to be more consistent with the strike zone. Yeah, and
Aaron Judge is the one guy I see all the time. I mean, he gets some pitches that are low, but they call it a strike on him constantly. And to his credit, he bites his tongue and walks to the dugout. But I mean, it has to be frustrating when it's an obvious ball and they're calling it a strike.
Yeah, I mean, they really got to get it together. I mean, if you're a hitter, a pitcher, you just want consistency. If it's a ball, it's a ball. Then if, like late in the game, it's not a strike. But it just seems like they switch from inning to inning, from game to game, and it's like you don't have any consistency. And like I say, a lot of times they come at the player and they point at the player, and it's just like and they don't get reprimanded. So I think we might see like they got in the Atlantic League. You might have machines calling balls and strikes.
Yeah, because that one game when Gardner got thrown out, it was CeCe who was mouthing off at the umpire. I mean, Sabathia did get thrown out too, but they tossed Gardner because he was hitting the dugout with the bat, but he wasn't saying a word.
Yeah, I mean, once you're in the dugout and stuff, I mean, players have been hitting water coolers and throwing stuff in the dugout since they've started baseball. I mean, the umpires just shouldn't even worry about that. But I do think, personally, I don't like, when all these camera shots, when they show in the dugout constantly and they talk to the players between innings and the managers. I don't need to see that.
Yeah, and going back to when Gardner got thrown out that one game, that was a minor league umpire who had been called up to cover for someone who was on vacation. So, I mean, when you're calling up minor leaguers, I mean, there is that inconsistency behind home plate.
Yeah, I think when they bring guys up from the minor leagues, they should have a more experienced guy call balls and strikes, and just let the minor league umpires, work the bases, until they get a little more experience. Because really, any manager is going to try to take advantage of that. Yeah. And, that causes a lot of trouble too. I think you should have a more experienced umpire behind home plate, calling balls and strikes. If anything, it's for his protection too, because, he's going to get singled out just like they do a rookie, so.
And this team does, like you said, it reminds you of the 98 team a little bit.
Well, what I mean is they seem, if they need they're losing by a run, somebody hits a home run. If they need they need a double play, they get a double play. If they need a big play or need a big hit, they thus far they always seem to come through. But like I say, we still, until they do it in the playoffs, it's a different thing.
And I can't remember the graph I saw, but the 2009 Yankees who won the World Series, their starting pitching wasn't that great either, but they won the World Series. So I mean, even though their starting pitcher's a little bit shaky, I mean, you never know. I mean, they could go on a nice run in the postseason.
Well, the thing is, they had CeCe, they had power pitchers. CeCe was fantastic in 2009, and in the second game of the World Series, A.J. Burnett come up with a terrific effort. I mean, he pitched a great game against the Phillies, and then you had David Robertson was a power pitcher, and you had Phil Hughes. He had a tremendous year that year, coming in as a setup guy, and then you had Mo. So you had the pitching was good enough to get you through. And of course, you had Andy Pettitte, who come up great in the postseason, like all the time.
And did you think someone like Andy Pettitte will ever see the Hall of Fame?
I think he's like borderline. He was a great pitcher. I think if they took into an account of his postseason performer, 21-19 games, that might get him in over the hump. But I think they really don't pay too much attention to the postseason. I think it's what they do in the regular season. But if you take into account the postseason record he had, he might be a Hall of Famer. But regardless, he was a great Yankee and a clutch pitcher.
Are there any Yankees that are farther back in generation that you think deserve to be in the Hall of Fame that aren't?
Well, I didn't see these guys, but from what I heard, you got pitchers like Allie Reynolds, and you got Vic Raschi, and guys like that. They were terrific when the Yankees had the great run, 49 and through 53 when they won 5 World Series in a row. And Allie Reynolds and Vic Raschi were just tremendous. And out of the 20 World Series games the Yankees won, beating the Dodgers and the Phillies and the Giants, Allie Reynolds had a role in 12, 13 of the wins. So, he was a terrific pitcher, as was Vic Raschi and Eddie Lopat, and Whitey Ford was on those teams. But, the Yankees had so many great players, you could throw a lot of them in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Is Bill Dickey's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
They had a great run. They had, they had Bill Dickey, and then they got Yogi, and then they had Elston Howard, and then they had Thurman Munson, and then they had Posada, because I remember Ralph and me did a podcast in November, and for 68 out of the 82 years, the Yankees had those 5 guys as their catcher. It's just an incredible run.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of the great Yankees right now, and I wonder if Jorge Posada is someone will ever see the Hall of Fame too. He's one of those borderline guys, I think.
Yeah, he went up for the vote a couple years ago, and he didn't even get enough votes to stay on the ballot.
Wow.
Which is kind of ridiculous. Regardless of whether you think he's good enough for the Hall of Fame, he at least should have got some consideration, because if you look at his offensive numbers over the years, he's right up there with a lot of catchers in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he was, I think, a 5-time Silver Slugger Award winner.
Yeah, you could count on him for 20-plus homers, 80-plus RBIs a year, and he was a great offensive catcher. And, defensively he had some problems at times, but he wasn't, he was adequate, Yeah. And I love his attitude, because he was a battler, He reminded me a lot of Munson. He had a lot of the same qualities that Thurman did.
He was called up, I think, at the end of '95, and I think he was on the team in '96, but he didn't start. Wasn't named the starting catcher until 1999.
Yeah, he was with him, I think, '95 too, when he was on the bench with Jeter, and when they lost to Seattle. Yeah, they had Girardi, and Joe Girardi worked a lot with Posada, even though he knew Posada was eventually going to take his job. But Girardi was an excellent defensive catcher, and he got a big triple in the Game 6 of the '96 series. So, Girardi was good, and Girardi was an excellent manager too. I hope he gets another shot.
Oh yeah, I think he will. I've been hearing him on sports radio and the Baseball Network. He's been all over the place talking, and you could tell he's itching to get back into coaching.
Yeah, even before he got the Yankee job, he used to be on the Yes Network as an announcer, and he'd be talking strategy and breaking down all the catching, fundamentals, and it was just, it was great to listen to. So, a mind like he's got, he'll be back in the show before too long.
And, I thought he'd be a perfect fit for the Mets job, but the Mets, all of a sudden, they're right there in the wild card mix in the National League. We could see both New York teams in the postseason.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm glad to see the Mets, they kept their team together, and they really turned it around. And this Alonso kid, he's something special, and the pitching has just come forward, and so it's, I hope to see the Mets continue.
Yeah, I think Alonso has something like 39 home runs. He already broke the Mets record for rookies with the most home runs as a rookie, passing Strawberry.
Yeah, so he's a kid from down here. He went to school down here in Tampa, and I hear people bragging about him all the time down here. I mean, he's just been a terrific player so far.
Yeah, they're playing a 3-game series with Cleveland right now, and they took the first game last night. It'd be nice to see them sweep Cleveland, see them knock them down a little bit out of the wild card standings in the American League.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Mets, get in the playoffs again, but I don't want to see another Yankee World Series. That's too that's too nerve-wracking.
Yeah, in Cleveland though. But Cleveland, if things keep going the way they are, they could be the Yankees' first matchup in the postseason, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, they had some great matchups with the Indians over the years. They've had some good results, and they've had some bad results too. But Cleveland's always tough, and hopefully, if they play Cleveland again, they'll get some bug spray and get rid of all the mites out there.
Yeah. Marcus Stroman started for the Mets tonight. He was a big pickup for them. He pitched 4 innings and only gave up 1 run on 5 hits.
Yeah, has he been doing well with the Mets?
Yeah, he's actually done. He's been actually really good for them in his couple of starts so far.
Well, yeah, I know he wanted to come to the Yankees. It would have been nice for the Yankees to get him, but at least he's pitching at home, and he's been very effective so far.
Yeah, do you think Cashman's going to regret not going after like a Corbin and then not dishing out the money for Dallas Keuchel? Do you think that's going to come back to bite him this season?
Well, we don't know all the details about it. They might have been good to go get Keuchel.
Yeah.
But if they don't do it in the playoffs, I mean, he's going to be open to a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
And we just have to wait to see how it plays out, because the pitching is a question mark. And I haven't looked, but I don't know who the free agent pitchers are this winter. So, that's another thing. We got to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and they showed you Tanaka's postseason numbers, and he, in 5 games he's 3-2, but he's got an ERA of 1.50, and his hits, I think he's only given up like 15 hits in like 30 innings, something like that. I mean, his hits to innings ratio is great, and so is his strikeout to walk ratio. I mean, he is a big time pitcher in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at his results over the years, and he's been a very good pitcher, an excellent pickup for the Yankees. He's not like a 15, 18 game winner, but he always seems to win these 12, 13, 14 games, and there's not many guys in the major leagues who win 12, 13 games for like 5, 6 seasons in a row. I mean, if you check the list, I don't think you'll find too many, but Tanaka's around that total every season.
Yeah, and this year, I mean, the ball just seems to be jumping off the bat. So I mean, a lot of pitchers, their records aren't that impressive, but I mean, he's pitching like he's always pitched. He's that guy that gives you a couple of really good games and then gets hurt by a long ball in one of them. But overall, he's been a great pitcher for the Yankees. Yeah, I mean,
the ball is just flying all over. I think they're going to break the record this year, the most home runs. And, the thing that kind of concerns me is like, people complain, the new fans, they don't want to see 3-2 games, 2-1 games. But I mean, with a low attention span, I mean, do you want to see 10-8 every night, 12-10 every night? I mean, it's like, it's a home run derby every night, and that can get kind of, monotonous too.
Yeah, and those games go on for like 4 hours and sometimes even longer. I mean, that's a long game.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see a 2-1 game once in a while, late innings. The guy walks and steals a base, and you just don't want to see the same thing all the time, because that gets monotonous too. Yeah, I mean, and even now, I mean, there's a lot of teams, and there's not that many fans in the stands. And hopefully with the postseason around the corner, it'll start picking up. Well, it's just misfortune. One of the big reasons, I think, they just price people out of the game.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame. I mean, I remember, going to Yankee Stadium at the spur of the moment. You could get a good ticket for $10 or $15, and it was a couple bucks to park, and you could stop across the street from the Yankee Stadium and run into McDonald's and bring the food in. So you could go to a game for $10, $15, $20, and you can't do that anymore. And it's, it's just a damn shame. I mean, they're pricing the real fans out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been to a game in a long time, but my friends that go to the Yankee games, it's extremely expensive, especially for a family that's going.
Yeah, I know. I had a friend, Bob, they gave him 4 tickets at work to go to a Yankee game, and he looked at the price tag of them. It was like $1,400.
Holy shit.
So, what you do, you sell them for $100.
Yeah.
And then you buy a bleacher seat.
Yep.
But it's ridiculous. I mean, you watch the Yankees on TV, and there's nobody sitting in the lower stands. They're all stuffing their face or getting drunk or, trying to figure out what gender they are that night. I mean, it's crazy.
That's like back in the 90s. We used to take a train up to the stadium, and back then you can get into the bleachers for free,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I used to go. I mean, I sat in the bleachers a couple times for like, I don't know, with $3 or $4. I remember going the first year when the Yankees played the Mets, and we sat out in the left field bleachers, which is like sitting, 450, 500 feet from home plate. But it was a terrific atmosphere. It was a lot of fun. The Mets and the Yankee fans were going back at each other, and the Yankees won the game 3-2 in 10 innings, I remember. But you can't do that anymore. It's just, it's a shame.
Yeah, there was one game. It was late in the season. I think we were playing Baltimore. Me and my friends, we already had a few too many before we got there, but they had sold out the stadium, and they were starting to sell bleacher seats, and we were stuck in line. And we had one friend who was really short, and we told him, sneak up to the front and get us 3 tickets. And he was able to worm his way up to the front and get 3 tickets before the bleachers were sold out. That, and I still can't remember that game.
No, I remember a game. I know you're a Mattingly fan. This was after, Donnie hurt his back. It didn't hit many home runs, but I remember going to a game in, it was the year they made the playoffs, 95. And he hit a late game home run to beat the Orioles 1-0. And that was like one of his, final big moments. But, there's just some of the things that just stick out in your mind.
Yeah, there was an article, I think, in the Post last week about the 94 team and what if, the strike didn't happen, would that team, would that have propelled the 95 team to the World Series if they had, made it to the playoffs in 94, and that experience would have helped them in 95.
Yeah, you never know what could have happened, because another thing, the Expos were tremendous that year. And you imagine if they got in the World Series, they might have been able to, to keep the franchise up there. You don't know, but, that's a possibility, because the Expos had some outstanding players throughout the years, but, they had Carter, they had Dawson, they had Steve Rogers, Cromartie, Ellis Valentine. The list is on and on. Gary Carter. I mean, Tim Raines. I mean, the team they had was outstanding.
Yeah, I remember that strike. I mean, it did hurt baseball. I mean, I remember it was Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa battling out for home runs, brought a lot of fans back to the game. I can remember when McGwire hit his 70th home run, my street went crazy. People were hitting pots and pans outside their house. I mean, I never forget that.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much, saved the game after the strike years. And, I mean, baseball knew, like, a lot of these guys were juicing up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But they had pissed off a lot of people by not having the series. And this sort of, like, saved the game. It was similar, like, after the 1919 World Series, when Babe Ruth come along and started hitting all those home runs, and, people got interested in baseball again.
And is it true? I know Babe Ruth was before both our times, but is it true he was the first one to hit a home run at Forbes Field?
I think he was the first one to hit a home run out of Forbes Field.
Okay, yeah.
Because one of the last games he played for the Boston Braves, he hit 3 home runs. And I think that was one of the last games he played. He might have played 1 or 2 more and stuff, but
and
go ahead, Robert.
He actually had someone that ran for him, right, when he was at bat towards the end.
I never heard of that. I mean, if you hit a home run, all you have to do is, Babe put a lot of weight on late in his career and stuff. I'll tell you a funny story. I used to go through Tampa University a lot, ride through there, and that's where the Washington Senators trained with Walter Johnson. And there was always this sign up, and I must have went past this sign like 1,000 times. And I finally stopped and read it. It's where Babe Ruth, in an exhibition game, hit one of the longest home runs ever.
Wow.
With Tampa University. And I went past the sign like, 1,000 times. I never stopped to read it. So, there's a lot of history with the Babe down here in Tampa too.
Wow, holy cow! Yeah, I remember when one of the first autobiographies I read was on Mickey Mantle, and it showed you the home run he hit against the Washington Senators, where it went out of the stadium, across the street, over a bus, and into the gas station. Yeah, I believe that was he hit it off Chuck Stobbs. I mean, Mickey was like one of the most popular players ever. I mean, everybody loved Mickey Mantle. Yeah, and my father says he hit one. They hit a flagpole at Yankee Stadium, I think. Well, he hit 2 home runs off the facade. Okay. In right field. Wow. And I remember going to a fan appreciation day in 1968, and the Yankees had a home run hitting contest. It was Mickey Mantle, Rocky Colavito, Tony Soalita against Hawk Harrelson, Carl Yastrzemski, Enrico Petrocelli. And Tony Soalita, who hit 51 homers in the minors that year with the Yankees, hit a foul ball like off the facade in right field. Wow. It almost went out of the stadium. It was a foul ball. But it was like, you just sit there and watch it, and it's like, you can't believe it. Yeah, I know in the 1950s, it might have even into the 60s, they used to have home run contests during the week. If 2 big teams were playing each other, like they would have it'd be a show they would have on like before the game, and it'd be like Mickey Mantle versus whoever was on the other team. I go on. It's on YouTube. I gotta check it out again one day to see what the program was called. Yeah, the show was Home Run Derby, and it was filmed like in 1958, 1959 at Wrigley Field in California. It was a minor league park. I think the Angels might have played there, when they got in the league, but it was a minor league park in the Pacific Coast League. And the shows are great. They had the Mick and Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and Killebrew, Rocky Colavito, Ernie Banks. I mean, Frank Robinson. It was Hank Aaron. It's just a great show to watch. So, if anybody wants to get nostalgic, just watch it on YouTube because it's incredible. And Hank Aaron's career is remarkable, how his longevity. I mean, I don't think he ever had a season where he hit more than 40 home runs? Yeah, I think the most he ever had was 44, but he had tremendous wrist. Yeah. He wasn't an overly big guy, but he'd get everything into that swing, and he just had he had a beautiful swing, and he was a terrific all-around player. He was a good outfielder too. That's the one thing about Don Mattingly. He had quick wrist too, and that back and the wrist problems just it really crippled the rest of his career.
Yeah, once you hurt your back, you lose the torque, and he could still hit. He still had the excellent hand-eye coordination, but he lost a lot of his power. And I know a couple years, he got some injections, and I believe he hit 17 home runs 2 years in a row. But I think the last 6 years of his career, he hit 60, 65 home runs. And if you've seen him when he was at his best, that wasn't the Don Mattingly we remember from 84 through 88.
I mean, some of the records he put up, 6 grand slams in the season, 8 games with a home run. I mean, Roger Clemens beat him out for the MVP in, what was it, 86?
Yeah, well, that's the year the Sox got in the series. And, I mean, the Yankees, they had Winfield then hitting behind him or in front of him, and they had Don Baylor, and you can't forget, Ricky Henderson. And so, he had a lot of table setters in front of him, and, he was a special Yankee.
Yeah, I remember him when, he said he found a little hitch in his swing the last few months of the 95 season. And he said, I wish I just found it a few years earlier. It was just a little hitch, he said, in his swing to get a jump start on a swing. And he said he wished he found it a few years early because he did have a great postseason in 95. Yeah,
and, he was struggling there, a little bit for a few seasons. It wasn't just a little bit. We were talking last week, and it's funny the way things turn out. I mean, if the Yankees kept Freddie McGriff, would Mattingly been a right fielder, and or he would have played first base, and McGriff might have been a DH. It was it's amazing how things work out, and McGriff should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's got 493 career home runs, I think it is.
Yeah, and he's a Tampa guy. He lives down here. He's born here. He should be a Hall of Famer because he was a tremendous player, good offensively, good defensively, and he was consistent year to year. And he wasn't an overly big guy, but he had a beautiful swing.
Oh yeah, and he was a tough at bat too. I mean, especially for a lefty. I mean, and when he'd hit them, they were gone. I mean, you knew it.
There was no doubt about him.
Yeah, I'm surprised someone like him's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he was a tremendous player for a lot of years.
Yeah, I believe he's tied with Lou Gehrig in home runs. So he should be in the Hall of Fame definitely.
Yeah, and getting back to the Yankees today, anything you're looking forward to on this road trip?
Well, the only thing I'm looking forward to, Robert, is just have consistency. You got the big lead now, and I think what could happen off the major league scene in the minor league with Severino and Betances and maybe Stanton getting back and Boyd getting back. You just hope all these guys get healthy, and especially Severino and Betances. I'm anxious to see. What they come back and what they can contribute to this team in September, and hopefully a long run in the playoffs.
Yeah, because, roster-wise, they're probably going to have to – there could be some tough decisions, especially with a lot of these guys getting healthy. I mean, you can't play everyone in the infield if Boyd's healthy. I mean, either Urshela's going to have to DH, but if Stanton's healthy, he's going to DH. I mean, there could be a lot of questions going into September. Or into the postseason, I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, if just say, for instance, you bring Stanton back, and he's struggling going into the playoffs. I mean, he's a great player.
Yeah.
But he's only played, once he played 9 games and maybe had 25, 30 at-bats. And if he comes back struggling, I mean, you want to see him in the starting lineup, in the playoffs. I mean, it's really you don't know what you would do. I mean, personally, if it got down between keeping Stanton and having Gio sit on the bench, I'd start Gio because he's been, great all year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, come out of nowhere. I mean, he's had, just an unbelievable year. I mean, he's batting .338. He's got 18 homers. He's driven in almost 70 runs. I mean, he's really been remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, we say it every week. There's another pickup off the scrap heap. So they do. The Yankees do a great job getting these players that in the minors. Not a lot of people hear of. I just wish they could do it with some starting pitching, but.
Yeah.
I think most teams in baseball would want more starting pitching. So.
Yeah, I mean, Talkman, they brought him up for defensive purposes, and since the All-Star break, he's batting .366. I mean, and Urshela is batting .398 since the All-Star game. I mean, it's just unreal.
Yeah, you figure those younger players might, have a little slump or, go south a little bit, but, they've gotten better. I know they like Talkman's bat. I mean, he struggled in the first half. The thing I really like about him, I mean, he's got a lot of intangibles. He can run the bases, he can steal bases, and he's an excellent outfielder at all three positions. That's what's really that's what I like about him.
And Maven's been a nice addition for us too. I mean, he's been great for us.
Yeah, there's another guy. I mean, he's been super all year, and say he has a good playoff. Well, you're just gonna throw him in the scrap heap over the winter. So, I mean, it's revived his career, but, there's another tough decision.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see if Paxton can get things going from the start. He starts against the Dodgers because we are going to need a third pitcher come the postseason, and if Severino's not ready, he could be coming out of the bullpen, so we might need that third pitcher and someone to step up the rest of the way.
Well, like when you play the better teams, the struggles of pitching has had for the Yankees, that's when it really shows up.
Yeah.
And you get a good team like the Dodgers. That's a good test this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a great series to watch. I think the Sunday night game's on ESPN, and Saturday game's going to be on Fox Sports 1.
Well, it'll relive, a lot of the great World Series from the 40s and 50s and, even the early 60s, which wasn't a great World Series for the Yankees because they got swept. But even the 70s, they played them a couple times. So, it's a great rivalry.
Didn't Jackie Robinson steal home plate in the World Series against the Yankees?
Yeah, there was that famous photo with Yogi.
Yeah,
Yogi went crazy. I think it was 1955. The Yankees actually won that game.
Did that? I don't remember how that particular series turned out, but I mean, It looked like Yogi got the tag in on him. Yeah,
because I heard for years afterwards when Yogi would see Jackie or Mrs. Jackie Robinson, Yogi would see him and say he was out. And, Jackie or his wife would say, oh, no, he was safe.
He was a great ball player, though, Jackie Robinson, hell of a ball player.
Yeah, it's just, with all the stuff he had to go through, it was just, I think with all the abuse he took and all the, the hate geared towards him, I think it really ended his life because if you see pictures of him, I think he died in his early 50s, and it's just a shame that, people have such hate in him.
Yeah, Branch Rickey, I think, told him, just take it for 3 years and then, lay down a bunt and run them over at first base. But, I mean, he did have to take a lot of abuse those first 3-4 years. I mean, it must have been tough.
Yeah, I was reading an interview the other day with, Bobby Morgan, who was with the Dodgers in the early 50s and the late 40s, and he said what, Jackie has to listen to. He says he said it was just disgraceful. I mean, we still got a long way to go. It's it's terrible. I
mean, it's unimaginable what he probably had to go through, the stuff he had to listen to.
Yeah, you wonder where, people come from. I mean, when you hate, you hate. And, it's just why we struggle as a society.
Yeah. And even though this isn't a baseball, football starting soon, You into the NFL or college or either one?
Yeah, I mean, like down here they have the USF Bulls. I go to a lot of the, the college football games because the college atmosphere is just fantastic, and the seats are cheap, and they play a lot of games at night. And I go see the Bucks once in a while, and I've always been a Packer fan because I remember the great dynasty. But I've always liked the Giants and the Jets too, and I believe you're a Giant fan, so you could fill me in how you think the Giants will do this year.
Well, they got a nice, easy. It's pretty easy the first half of their schedule. I think offensively they're going to be fine. It's going to be, can they stop anyone defensively? And I'm a huge Eli Manning fan, but just reading the tea leaves, it looks like the coach wants to get this young quarterback that they drafted, number 6 overall. They want to get him in as soon as possible. And they said the only way for Manning to keep his job is to keep the kid on the sideline, which means he's got to win games. So, I mean, as an Eli fan, I'm hoping the Giants get off to a really good start, and their first 4 games are winnable games. So I'm hoping they get off to a good start. They should, hopefully.
I know they play the Bucks down here in the 3rd week. I was just watching some of the highlights from last week, and I believe Manning's played well. And Daniel Jones threw some beautiful passes last week, but I think he was a little careless with the ball. I believe he had 2 fumbles. He didn't tuck the ball away. So, it looks like he's still got, some way to go, but it's, if they start off 1-4, 1-5, you might see Jones in there. So hopefully they can, because Eli's been a great quarterback for the Giants. I mean,
he's top 10 all time in passing yards, touchdowns, wins, and completions, and top 10 in come from behind wins. I mean, he's had a stellar career. And I talked with a couple of the local beat writers that cover the Giants, Dan Dugan for NJ.com, and he says Eli has looked great in practice during training camp, far and above better than the rookie they drafted. So, and he's had a great camp. So hopefully they can win enough games the first half of the season for Eli to keep his job. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, being a Giant fan, I hope they have a good season. And Eli's done a lot for the franchise. I mean, you don't want to see him start off, 2-4. I know they got like a night game against the Patriots, and then they have an open week. I think this is week 6 or 7. And if they're struggling at that point, you might see Jones come in, the 7th or 8th game of the year. But hopefully it won't come to that.
Because the Giants going into next year are going to have a lot of cap money to spend. I think they have the second most cap space going into next year with Eli coming off the books. So they're going to want to get this rookie quarterback, thrown into the fire this year. So going into next season, they can load up their defense and the kid will be ready to go. So, I mean, Eli, he's got to win games to stay on the field because they want to get this rookie ready for next year.
Well, there's a lot of questions for the Giants, and just like the Yankees, we'll know soon enough because they're starting up on, I think the 8th of September.
Yeah, and Eli, he had a radio gig with WFAN. He spoke with Mike Francesco weekly. He canceled his radio show for this season because he knows it. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows they want to get the kid in, and he didn't want to have to come on the radio as a backup talking about the Giants. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting season. I'm hoping he can get it done because, I'm just a huge Eli fan.
Well, I think it's the 3rd week coming up, and I believe Manning will probably play most of the 3rd preseason game. I mean, you know more about it than I would, but
yeah, the head coach, the way he sounded, it seems like they're going to play Eli probably the first quarter, maybe some of the second, but they want to get Daniel, the rookie, in there with the starting offensive line. So I think Eli will probably play maybe 3-4 series, and that'd be it. but he's looked sharp. Last week he went 5 for 5, threw a touchdown pass on his only drive. He looked sharp. And it's because the offensive line gave him great protection, and it's a shame because the second half of his career he hasn't really had an offensive line, and it just seems like now they finally put together a good offensive line, and it's a little bit too late for Eli.
Yeah, I know that. I remember watching games a few seasons back. He didn't have any time to throw.
No, 2017 he led the NFL with the fastest release time of 2.4 seconds. And even last year, he was sacked 14 times in 2.5 seconds or less, which led the NFL. And he was sacked a career-high 40-something times last year. He was just under assault, especially the first half of the season. The first 8 games last year, he was sacked 31 times, and his previous career high was 39 times in 2013. And he almost matched that through the first 8 games last year. The last 3 years, he's had no time to throw.
Well, didn't the offense pick up like the last 5 or 6 games? Didn't they score over 30 points a lot?
Yeah, the 7 of their last 8 games, they averaged over 32 points a game. And going into their bye week, they claimed a right guard off of waivers, and he kind of helped solidify the right side of the offensive line. And the left side was getting better as the year went on. But picking up that right guard really helped the line going into the second half. And their running game got better, and as a result, their passing game got better. And this year they picked up two good guys for the right guard and right tackle. So, they should have a really good offensive line. Eli should have time to throw. They'll be able to run the football. I think their offense is going to be fine this year.
Well, hopefully, they'll have a good season and they can do something with the defense.
Yeah, defensively, they drafted some guys, they signed some veterans, but if they can't get a pass rush and stop the run, then it could be a matter of having to outscore their opponents this year again.
Yeah, and the rules nowadays, it favors the offense. To be a defensive back in the NFL or a safety, it's one of the toughest jobs in sports. You can't even touch these guys anymore.
No, you got to be careful where you hit them. You see some guys are afraid to even hit a receiver because, you get flagged for hitting what they call a defenseless receiver. If the receiver's not expecting a hit, you can get flagged. And you're not allowed to touch the receivers down the field as they're running. Everything favors the quarterback and receiver today.
Yeah, it sounds like it's become an arena football.
Yeah, if you sack the quarterback and land on top of him, they call a 15-yard penalty for roughing the passer. It's hard to sometimes when you sack a quarterback not to land on top of him, but they're trying to protect these quarterbacks because they're so important to the team. But it's almost getting to the point where it's like you might as well just put a red jersey on the quarterback and not be allowed to touch him.
No, it's crazy. I remember, I've been watching Giant games since 1965. And, I remember when Phil Simms used to play against the Eagles and the Redskins, the Cowboys, the 49ers. He'd be getting the shit knocked out of him. The Giants be knocking the crap out of the other quarterbacks too. They were tough back then.
Yeah, Ron Jaworski for the Eagles one time called a timeout because he couldn't find Lawrence Taylor, and it turned out Lawrence Taylor was on the sideline. But that's how, Ron Jaworski was terrified of LT, and he couldn't find him, so he called a timeout, and it turned out LT was on the sideline.
Yeah, the NFC East was tough. For like 8 years in a row, I believe the Super Bowl champion came out of the NFC, and I think Phil Simms the Giants played against the Super Bowl champion like 8 years in a row. So it was tough back then.
Oh God, yeah. The players today. I don't think they could get through a training camp back then in the 80s. You had 2 days, sometimes 3 days in pads. Today they're barely in pads because of safety precautions, and I think it's hurt the offensive line play in the football league. It's just a mess. I think it's actually hurt the play, the lack of practice time.
Yeah, when you have an offensive, defensive line, I mean, you have to have continuity. I mean, you look at all the teams when they have great offensive guys line guys who play together for years. I mean, that's worth its weight in gold. I mean, you just can't keep on shifting guys in and out. If you don't have a good line, you don't have a good team.
Yeah, because the offensive line, I mean, they literally have to all be on the same page. If one guy makes a mistake, it can blow up and ruin the play. So I mean, they really need to play together and know each other. And if you're not banging, live practice, hitting bodies, it takes a long time. I mean, and the offensive line, I think's been affected by the lack of practice time in the NFL.
Well, we'll have to see how it all pans out. But it's good. Football's coming up.
Yeah, we'll have postseason, we'll have football, and soon basketball will be back. I mean, the fall's a good time for sports.
Yeah, I've always been a hockey fan with the Rangers, and I've always loved the Rangers to go all the time. I was always a big Knicks fan, but they've sucked. They've sucked forever. Hopefully they can do something this year.
I was hoping they'd get that kid Zion from Duke. I mean, they did wind up drafting a Duke player, but I mean, I remember the Knicks from the 90s. I mean, they were just always a tough, gritty team, and since the last 2 decades, it's been a nightmare. It's been up and down, and it's been down the last few years.
Well, I think Dolan's got to sell. I mean, and another thing you have to blame the fans. The fans keep on going to the games.
Yeah.
And, if you have 19,500 there every night, that used to be the capacity. I don't know what it is now. I mean, there's no reason to change. You still got these people coming.
Yeah, and with Brooklyn signing Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they're going to be the team that's on the back of the sports pages in New York for the next few years. The Knicks really got to up their game.
Well, the thing with Durant, I mean, with the injury, that was kind of, I don't know if I would have went after him anyway. And if the Knicks signed him, he'd never play again.
Yeah. Yeah. They've had bad luck.
That was the curse of the Knicks. If the Knicks signed Durant, he'd never play again, or he'd play great for 30 games, and that would be the end of his career. So it was probably better that he stayed away from the Knicks and the Knicks stayed away from him.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad they didn't sign Kyrie Irving. I think he's a little bit of a he's not good as far as chemistry wise inside the locker room.
Well, the thing now in all sports, I mean, you cheer for the laundry. You don't have guys who stay with the teams as long as they used to. So, it's in and out all the time. So we'll see how everything pans out. But it's nice to have sports to get away from all the other shit going on.
Yeah, right. I mean, but growing up, I loved basketball, and the one thing, players stayed with the teams that drafted them. I mean, you rarely saw someone leave the team that drafted them. And nowadays, they move around constantly, and they're looking to team up with their buddy.
Yeah, and I think you don't have the rivalries and stuff. I mean, you don't have all the teams don't have a chance to win, so that sort of hurts everything. But I remember growing up, the Lakers were always tough, and the Celtics, the Sixers were good, the Celtics were good, the Knicks were good, the Bulls. So you had and those teams hated each other. They didn't want to go to another team. They wanted to beat that team with the team they were with, but you don't have that anymore. Like everybody's pal now. They're all billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch nearly as much basketball as I used to. I mean, I can't do it. Wide open threes, driving down the lane, uncontested. I mean, they don't play defense anymore in the league. I mean, it's really changed a lot since I was young.
Yeah, well, nobody shoots the mid-range jumpers anymore. You don't see 12-footers, 15-footers. Everybody can make 15-footers. Now they want to go behind their back and miss layups and miss three-pointers. If they're playing well, it's fantastic to watch. When the Warriors are doing good and Toronto and you get some other teams, when they're playing well, it's a terrific game to watch. But if they're off and they're not missing shots, it's a nightmare to watch.
Yeah. And getting back to the Yankees, when we talk next week, we'll be playing Seattle, I think. Yeah. Yep. I'm hoping for a great series with the Dodgers. I'm hoping that is a really good series.
Yeah, it should be. I just hope they don't have no 5-6 game losing streak, and they get everybody back, and we'll see how everything plays out over the next couple days.
And the game on Sunday, it's Domingo Germán versus Clayton Kershaw, so that should be a really good matchup.
Yeah, that'll be a fun matchup to see.
Yeah. This has been fun, Jack. Hopefully, when we talk next, nothing drastic has happened. The Yankees are still 9.5 games up, and cruising into the postseason.
Well, hopefully, Robert, it'll be a good week, and hopefully the cable come on down here, because we had a lightning storm and everything got knocked out. So hopefully I'll have my computer back on and I'll be able to find out who won tonight's game.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it to the start of it, but like I said last night, I fell asleep before it started. And those West Coast games.
They got a big lead, so you can sleep well.
Yeah. The games against the Dodgers, the first game Friday is at 10:10, but on Saturday they play at 4:00, and then on Sunday they play at 7.
Yeah, that's when they should start the World Series games, but that's another show.
Yeah. All right, Jack, this is fun.
Yeah, it's always a great time, Robert. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jack. Thank you. Everyone, have a good night. Talk to you next week.